But before all that, our next guest is one of the country's finest violinists, having performed with some of the world's most prestigious orchestras, including London Symphony Orchestra and the Royal Philharmonic. But his performance at London's Cadogan Hall tomorrow night is extra special, raising much-needed funds for 3 worthy causes. So let's take a listen to what concertgoers can expect. And joining us now in the studio is Charlie Siem. Charlie, lovely to see you. And as a former fiddler, it's always nice to be reminded just how long it has been since I took.
You've got to get it. You've got to get back into it. You've got to get back into it. You know?
I think there are probably some public order offences that I would be.
I doubt that. I doubt that.
Charlie, though, take us to the Cadogan Hall tomorrow night. Obviously, you've toured the world. You've played in some fantastic venues, but this is a night for charity and 3 specific charities.
Yeah. In particular, this Tucca Foundation, which is a Brazilian charity that I was introduced to about a year ago. I played a concert in Sao Paulo and met Dr. Sidney Eppelman, who's the chap who started this foundation, which basically builds care centres for children with cancer. And when I was in Sao Paulo, I actually visited one of these centres and was really struck. I mean, it was one of those moments when you sort of realise how much you take for granted yourself and how much of an obligation one has, if you're as lucky as I've been, to sort of do something, for people who've been less fortunate. And these young people, who are all wired up in this room. And again, it was not a fancy place. It was on the outskirts of Sao Paulo, sort of, kind of rough area, actually. And it wasn't sort of a flamboyant, very fancy-looking place at all. It was just the bare necessities of what they needed. And the work that this Sidney Eppelman's been doing is just so noble, and I was so overwhelmed by it. I felt, this is something I would like to support, because it wasn't, again, one of these. It's not a charity that's sort of squeaky clean, that has big fundraisers. It's quite small. They do very specific work.
And it's that focus on children. We were speaking just a few minutes ago to Camp, your sergeant, and there is perhaps a disconnect between the public's view of cancer and treatment and research, and actually there is perhaps not as much focus as there should be on the young people that this charity wants to help. I
agree, and what I was most struck by, actually, visiting the centre, was the sort of extraordinary sense of hope and positivity that was there. I mean, one imagines, going and being incredibly sort of, downhearted and depressed by all that. But actually, these kids were so sort of, they had so much light coming out of them. And I brought my violin, I played a bit for them. I spent an afternoon sort of chatting with them. And it was actually one of the most sort of, positive experiences I'd had for such a long time. So for me, it's something wonderful, to be involved with it. And it adds a dimension in my life. And, playing a concert in aid of it, doing what I do, for this cause is sort of an added sort of dimension. So,
I mean, we were talking about this in the break. I mean, I suspect you probably don't have very much time in your hectic schedule, first and foremost, to do a concert like this, but also to be able to spend some time in Brazil with young people suffering with cancer.
I mean, it was wonderful to be playing. I haven't played in London, actually, for a while, despite being from London, and so the fact that they wanted me to do this concert for them in London was great. But yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily, when I'm travelling, necessarily have the time to sort of go and visit these sorts of things. But because the concert I was doing in Brazil was, it was in aid of the Tucca Foundation as well, it was part of the experience that they brought me out there. And it was one that I absolutely am so glad to have done. And to have this relationship now with the foundation and with Sidney Eppelman, who is such an inspiration in terms of what he's done and what he continues to do.
So, concert tomorrow night at the Cadogan Hall in London.
Exactly.
Where can people get the tickets?
So, Cadogan Hall website, they're still available on the website, and I'll be playing with Itamar Golan, who's a wonderful Israeli pianist I've played with for a number of years now. We'll be doing a varied programme. Debussy, we're playing Franck Sonata, the famous Franck Sonata, Bach, Chacon, I'll play. So it's a great programme. And I hope that many people will be able to join us there.
Well, we hope so too, Charlie. Yes. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, thanks for having me.
And best of luck with tomorrow night. Time for us, very briefly, to have a look at the weather. Here's Naz.